Japan has always had a very long history of narrative visual storytelling. From 6th century onward, you have these hand scrolls, these emakimono, which are fantastic. You open them up at arm's length, and then you see these flowing pictures and these stories. Then you have these wonderful hanging scrolls, they're called etoki, where Buddhist priests and itinerant storytellers would tell the Buddhist tales through these hanging scrolls. All of these things are part of Japanese culture, but manga comes from the 1880s. The manga prequel, and what really made manga manga, was the opening of the port of Yokohama. In Yokohama in 1860s, this new port came in for foreign trade. And as in any new port, what happens is a lot of people come from all over. You get people from the UK, from Britain, you get the people from France, from all China, from all sorts of places. And with it, they brought newspaper technology and satire. And the fusion between Western technology, satire, and comics merges and creates a new type of storytelling. The father of manga, as we know it today, though, is Tezuka Osamu. His first manga, New Treasure Island, sold over 400,000 copies. It ushered in a new style of manga, a style that was much more fluid, that was very influenced by watching cartoons. And manga then morphed again into what it is today. Manga and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland have a very long relationship. Mishima Yukio, the famous novelist, translated Alice. Kusama Yayoi, the artist, illustrated Alice. In manga, there are tens, if not hundreds, of Alices, and also in anime and gaming. Alice is a murderer, Alice is a teddy bear, Alice is a boy, Alice is an empty figure, Alice is anything. Manga in the pre-war and post-war period was very much geared towards children. You have two very famous magazines that we have in the exhibition, Shoujo Club and Shonen Club. These are girls' club, boys' club. And as the children that were reading Tezuka's works in the post-war period were getting older, manga grew up with them. What we find in the 60s and 70s is the children that were reading their manga in the 40s and 50s are getting older, and so manga content reflected their interests. So we have the original sports getting more complicated, we have history stories, murder stories, science fiction, and manga really diversifies into all sorts of genres. In the late 60s, early 70s, with the student demonstrations, manga was on it, and you get a lot of this reflected in some of the avant-garde manga, but certainly the magazine Garo was very, very important for that. But there's a whole diversification of manga, and now what you find is manga for young people all the way through to older people. So manga is no longer just for children. We wanted to show that there is a manga for everyone. You could say manga is just humorous, and manga is, really a distraction to the real thing, which is literature. But in fact, manga is actually quite important. Manga artists are often people from marginalized communities, or people who feel that their history isn't written elsewhere, or artists who feel that histories can be slightly different. Not the accepted histories. So there are incredible amounts of manga. There are manga seeing the world through cat's eyes. There are manga seeing through every shade of sexuality or none. There's manga, for example, time slips from ancient Greece to contemporary Japan, all sorts of manga. So the idea in this exhibition is to find your own manga. Throughout Asia, you get fantastic different resonances of manga. You also have in Europe bande dessinée. In France and Belgium, you have graphic traditions all through Europe, and manga starts to come out there. Manga is also influenced by bande dessinée and comics, and certainly Disney, and by America, but manga also influences. So it really is a kind of a very fluid mix. For example, Tezuka, in his New Treasure Island, was very much influenced by Disney. But soon afterwards, he wrote Kimba, the White Lion. We all know what happened there. Yes, Lion King. Disney took that for its own. And so you see manga forms almost everywhere. But what's special about Japanese manga that I think is why it's so compelling and why it's spreading out so much now is that it is the power of line. It's this visual power. It's just this fluid movement that really draws you in. In general, also, what manga tends to do is, as all of Japanese art does, is when you're having a serial narrative, you see the before and the after, but the actual action tends to happen in your mind. It's very performative. So by doing that, it engages your mind, and then you get drawn into it, and you almost feel it. It's immersive, and that's really its power. So as we're going forward, manga is uniquely positioned to be part of the language of the future.